Yajong, hello, welcome back. If this is your first time, thank you for spending your time with me. My name is Bao, and I started this channel to share my life on being Hmong, Christian, and divorce. I am also turning 43 this month. Okay, so I want to share a little bit of a background and go way back to my first love, because this is the driver for everything that I do, just about every decision I make in good faith, and in showing me how to see the world and what it can be. That first love is none other than Jesus, or God. I grew up in a Christian home. It is the only religion that I've ever practiced. My paternal grandfather had converted in the 40s, and so my father carried that, and he taught us to love God and to worship Him and to come to know Him and understand Him. For some reason, as a very young girl, it was always impressed upon me just how tangible God was. I don't know if it's because I had so many, just little dreams that I felt, came true because I prayed so hard. And that was a big thing for me too. I learned to pray very early on, and I learned the importance of that even as a preteen, maybe even before then. But I remember more that as a teenager I prayed a lot, and I prayed often. There was a lot of things that didn't seem to go right. Everything seemed to go wrong. And I found comfort in praying a lot and talking to God, and I always felt comforted by it. And so to me, that was my first love. And the important thing is, to take away from this little background I'm sharing is it shaped me in how I see the world and what I wanted to do with my life especially. So when I got baptized at 15, I developed an even deeper relationship with God, and this relationship is what drove me to want to serve Him in everything that I did. And so I know this is going to sound very idealistic. It's going to sound even, I don't know, it's not fanatical. It's just kind of way out there for a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, Everybody else my age at the time is out there hanging out with their friends and going to movies, doing fun stuff, maybe even talking to boys, but that just wasn't for me at the time. I was just wanting to know God better. There was a lot going on in my life in my teen years, and maybe I'll touch upon that later. It's not really, it helped to shape me too, but not so much in the direction of, having gotten married and how I became divorced. But going back to my first love, when I discovered how important God was to me, and when I discovered how close I became, in believing in Jesus, and how strong that faith had grown as a teen, I wanted to serve Him. It's all that I wanted to do. I wanted to follow in Jesus' footsteps, and I wanted to, I literally offered my life as a living sacrifice into the service of God, and wherever He called me, I said, here I am. That was my life as a teenager. So after I got baptized, this little voice popped into my head, and it was like, how awesome would it be if I were to meet someone who shares my passion for God and my love for Jesus and this selflessness that I want to do. How great would it be if I had someone to shoulder that with me, and we could both together be a stronger front than if it was just me, and we would do these amazing things locally and abroad. And in my little young, naive, very idealistic, very passionate young heart, I wanted to further God's kingdom with someone by my side. And so I had this thought that it would just be so much more awesome to find someone like that, to meet someone like that. And then, if it progresses a marriage and if we were to have children, we could raise them up in the way they're supposed to go and train them to love God, teach them about God, so that they can be torchbearers for their generation, and so on and so on. And so, let's see. So I waited. I decided to wait. I didn't date in my teen years. I didn't talk to, I did talk to some young men, but it never panned into anything serious. And so in the back of my mind, I was always thinking and praying, God, just send me someone that loves you as much as I do. At that time, as a teenager, I wasn't having these big white weddings, even though I did have a white wedding, but it really wasn't my end all. It was, there was more to it, more to life. I saw more to my life than the typical dream of having a husband, children, a home, cars, a career. I just wanted to live for God. And at the time, I even thought about maybe becoming a missionary, just going abroad and really putting myself out there. That's how serious I was. I'm still very serious about my faith, but naturally circumstances have changed now. But at the time, that was what occupied my mind as a teenager. So I was really passionate about God. That is my first love. I wanted to serve Him with my life. I had offered my life as a living sacrifice, and nothing was going to sway me from that. I still went to college, and I wanted that career, of course. I still have to have a job, right? Everything is dependent on finance and resources and being able to travel so that I could do the things I wanted to do in the name of God, and in His service. And so, education aside, I decided to wait and prayed. And then eventually, in the third year of undergrad, I met this young man who emailed me. And just a long story short, we didn't technically meet face to face until, a few months into the email, phone call, courtship type. If you have ever dated long distance in the Hmong culture, you completely understand where I'm coming from 20 years ago. So let's see. So, email was very eloquent. I thought he was very well-spoken, well-written. And then we got to talking, and I thought he was well-spoken. And then, as we got to talk, I wanted to share my dreams. I wanted to share my goals and my passion. And I let him know that I love God. I told him that I would love God before Him too. It's a non-negotiable for me that this is where He would be. It's always going to be God, and then my significant other, my family. But first and foremost, it would always be God in my life. And he said okay to that, And then I shared my dreams of, the missions trips, the community, the heart for work and helping those that are in need. And this young man said everything that I wanted to hear. He shared the same goals. He, envisioned himself where I want to be in 5 years, 10 years. I talked big. I had these ginormous goals for some reason as a teenager and in my early 20s. And so when I met him, I expressed all these things because I had every intention of completing these things. I say that with sincere honesty. I had every intention to do that. When I met this young man, he said that he was on board with everything that I said. The goals that I had outlined, he was fully on board, and his same passions were aligned with me. And I fell for it, you guys, okay? I was young, I was idealistic, and perfect for the picking. I will... Looking back, I do wish I had more experience in talking with men, in meeting men, but I didn't. You know, this was the first relationship I had ever had, and because purity was so important too, you know, they honed that into us as well. I thought I waited and that I had finally found the one that fit and aligned with my passions, my goals, and I was going to be able to do everything I wanted to alongside someone that shared the same dreams, the same vision, and it was going to be awesome. So in my mind, you know, a couple months into talking to this young man, I'm thinking, wow, God, you really answered my prayers. You heard me, you know, and my wait wasn't in vain. It was perfect. He was perfect. He was too perfect, too good to be real. But I didn't know that because of lack of experience. I was very sheltered. This is no no hidden secret. I have 4 brothers. They sheltered me in their own way, but I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things that, you know, other young girls were. I couldn't go a lot of places, and, you know, curfews. I just went to school, to work, and back home. Did my homework, whatever. So, you know, exploring the town, hanging out with friends, or, you know, just going to school activities, I couldn't do that. I really was discouraged from doing all those things. So don't feel bad that I'm sharing that. It's a part of my life. And it's part of what has shaped me. But anyways, going back to, you know, meeting this young man and hearing everything that I wanted to hear, just wow, you know, it was just like everything that I've been waiting for 21 years. He's finally arrived. And when that happened, I thought, oh wow, it's another wonderful testimony that I can witness about of God's answers, right, to prayer. And so, being young, I fell for this young man who painted himself as this very different person than what I came to learn was not who he was, or even what he aspired to be. And so, with that in mind, right, I thought that I was walking down the aisle to the ideal that I had waited a few years for, since the thought of marriage occurred to me, and that I was going to fulfill these goals and these dreams that I had. And I got married. And then after the wedding, I realized almost right away that I screwed up. I don't know how to put it. The morning that the plane landed in his hometown, and we drove up to his house, his parents' house, I knew in that moment, looking towards the door that I was going to enter into their home, I knew that I had made a mistake. And in the back of my mind, I thought for a moment about getting back on a plane and going home. But I didn't follow through with that because I had just gotten married. Who does that? What new bride runs away after the wedding, right? If I needed to run, I would have done it before the wedding. But I didn't know what I did that morning when I stepped out of the car. And for me, that was the pivotal moment that I knew, without a doubt, that I was going to face a very long, long road of hardship. I'm not saying that in hindsight. I'm telling you guys that in my gut, that very day that I walked up to the house, I knew. It's hard to explain. It's very hard to explain. It's like watching all that you ever dreamed of and hoped for become tangible and then crumbling right in front of you into pieces. And I didn't know how to explain that. I didn't know how to verbalize that feeling. I just knew that something felt very wrong. And I was out in the wild. I was away from my family. I was away from my protectors, my brothers. And I landed in a new city of strangers, without any allies, without any friends. And I knew I was screwed. That's the bottom line. So let's stop there, and I'll pick up from there and let the story begin. Thank you for your time, and see you next time. Shinjiro.